mute myself so that Tracy doesn't hear this noise in the background from the bus.
Got it. Sounds good.
Hey, my screen's blacked out for some reason, but I'm here.
Well, it says your name on it, Randy. So, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
as long as there's somebody in there.
I'm not ignoring y'all, but there's no picture coming through today. So sorry.
We are live, people.
Yeah. Thanks.
To see your advantage, absolutely. But
my screen might black out here at some point too, depending on what my battery life does. Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. It is 1:01 p.m. and we are live on a digital platform. Just to call the roll here. And I will apologize already for my poor eyesight if I can't identify you. But we have present from City Council, myself, Liz Mealy, Eric Biter, and Randy Allison. And I see Bonnie Katz back there in the cheap seats. Hi, Bonnie. We also have our city clerk, Janice Frank. Then present from the administration, I have Derek Slaughter, Adam Sander, Skip Memmy from Community Development, Kevin Mackey from the Treasurer's Office, Tracy Rash from Finance, and Chief Lucas here as well. And then and Peg Woodring. And I see that we are being joined by Tyler Dombrowski and Michael F. I apologize. Your picture is not great. I'm having a hard time.
From T. Ross Brothers.
Hi. Okay. Thank you. I was just going to say, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to know you, but I can't make you out in the little tiny little picture. All right. Okay. Then that should be it in terms of who we have on here. One quick note, Derek, I see that Molly's presenting the minimum municipal obligation, and I don't, unless I'm missing something, see her on here quite yet. So could somebody let Molly know that she'll be on toward the end of the agenda?
Yes, I'll let her know.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, then let's get things started. Item number 1 on our agenda is an ordinance, ARPA transfer ordinance number 3. Mayor Slaughter.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairwoman Muley, members of Finance. What you have before you is an ARPA transfer ordinance in the amount of $62,000, $62,570. The proposed recommendation is from Economic Development into the Economic Development specifically for the T. Ross Brothers development, which will be taking place on the west end of town to start construction. Actually, I believe the groundbreaking is next week. And this is 10 2-unit townhomes. Phase 1 is 10 2-unit townhomes. This will be used specifically for the water and sewer, stormwater infrastructure related to that development. And so I know this was discussed late last spring in ERC with Councilman and Chairman Biter and ERC. And then about the summer, they submitted permits, and I believe the final permit was granted either end of July, beginning of August, somewhere in that time frame. And T. Ross is now ready to move forward with phase 1 of the project. As you noted, Councilwoman Mealy, that we do have Michael Fisher here from T. Ross, who can speak to specifics of the project, and it was discussed a few times in ERC as well. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Derek. Eric, do you want to give us a report from ERC's discussion first?
Yeah, when this was brought to us before, I think it was in March or April, when this was initially brought forward to us, T. Ross Brothers had recently purchased the property up top of the West End Terrace development. Wisteria Lane is the street in question where the townhouses are going to go. They had asked us for assistance for those tap fees for the Water and Sewer Authority, and then also said that they would be having that second phase done. Originally, they had mentioned about 12 homes. Now they have expanded that to 24 homes, to my understanding. They're still working out some details with that, but we saw this on ERC as a sound investment and use of ARPA funds to get more tax revenue from residents living in the city. We've been told time and again from organizations such as Penn College, UPMC, to list a few, that new housing is a need in the city, and which is why we're not attracting the residents that we should within our city.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, if I could add just one other thing to
Please.
Councilman Bider's point. T. Ross did submit at the time a return on investment analysis that if you've not received yet, we can make sure you have it by Thursday.
I think I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, it was part of the attachments for the resolution, Derek.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Or the ordinance. Okay. All right. Then I guess the next question is, Randy, do you have any? I think Eric probably doesn't have any questions on this item. Randy, do you have any?
Just excuse me. Okay, the first schedule had 6 units and 6 additional units, then 8. So there was 20 in the first go round
Mhm.
also. But with a lower sewer tap fee.
Right.
Can you explain to me the difference between the first breakout of the 20 and the second that has 20 listed in one request?
Michael, do you want to? Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, so, and thanks for inviting me to your meeting, as well as even entertaining this request that we have. So the first time that we did submit this information, we were submitting it based upon the fees that were in play at the time by the authority. Since then, the sewer fees, as you probably are aware, it went up by a little bit more than $1,300 per tap. So the difference between the two reflects the original request of the 49,335, which reflects last year's rate, and the one that's at 62,000 and some change reflects the current rate. And the schedule shows the ROI, shows you as we build these out, because we're not going to build all 20 of them in 12-month period, but rather we're going to build them in increments. So the first year we're projecting, based upon the $62,000 request that we have before you, we're looking at the first year. Obviously, there won't be any return on investment because we're obviously building them out and getting them sold. But as year 2, we're showing that your investment would be returned to the point where on year 4, it will be completely returned. And then from there on out, they'll be based upon the current taxing structure and the value of the properties, estimated value of the properties. The city will be receiving somewhere in the neighborhood of a little bit north of $44,000 a year in tax as positive tax revenue coming back into the city. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, thank you. I was a little confused. I thought I heard somebody say there were 12 in the first one.
That
20 in the second one.
Yeah, when we originally came to you, we focused initially on phase 1, which is the 20-unit subdivision that's already been approved. There's already been 2 townhouses that were built prior to our organization getting involved. So we have 20 more to build out. And the sewer and water, all the public infrastructure is already in play. We're going to just build the actual units on site, obviously. And that's where we're asking for help specifically for the sewer and water tap-ins.
Okay.
Very simple, very clean. The other portion of the rest of the acreage that we have there is going to be obviously a little bit more difficult to develop because of the steepness of the slope. And we've been playing with various scenarios of what we might be able to do there. We'll call that phase 2 moving forward. and we could have anywhere in a combination of 4 units, 4 parcels, up to 24. Obviously, we would like to try to do the 24. We're going to have to work with the administration as well as council. Maybe taking a look at a new residential development district for up there, given the density of the housing and the slope of the housing that we'd be looking at. So that's our next step into the process of making a determination of the feasibility of how many can we actually put in there. And we just met with the mayor and the administration last week to have furthering that discussion, but we're not ready to formalize anything there yet. So before you today is phase 1, the 20 units at Wisteria Lane.
Okay, that's clear now. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Great. Okay, thanks, Randy. Yeah, that was one of my questions, but that seemed like what was going on there. I'm a little surprised to see that your estimated construction cost has only gone up by $90,000 between year 1 and year 2. But anyway.
And that's still a bit, I don't want to use the word crapshoot, but you know, it really was up there like in sky high heaven, and now it has creeped down a little bit material wise. So it's such a fluctuation of a marketplace from week to week and month to month. So as we build these up, you know, we could definitely see some fluctuation between now and 12 months out when we hopefully finish our last unit and we get a happy home buyer into it. So.
Got it. No, I mean, and we don't really expect it to be on. I was just surprised that was the increase. But I mean, I think we understand that costs change dramatically sometimes depending on circumstances. Derek, question for you. This development is not LRTA eligible, correct?
I'm not sure at this moment. I can check on that.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be a good answer to have for Thursday, because obviously that would dramatically change the return on investment question if we had, if we had a 10-year tax abatement in place on the parcels for some reason. Would also obviously change the marketability of the parcels dramatically. But I think that's an answer I'd want to have before I voted on this one way or the other. Other than that, clearly in terms of economic investment, I think this is, a relative no-brainer. We know that we do need new housing in the city, and we know that, and we want to make that economically feasible in terms of the sale price of the houses, especially because, by the 4th year, we'll be returning tax revenue to the city. Just to be clear, in terms of the discussion, the city would have gotten $62,000 more tax revenue if we hadn't invested in the project with ARPA funds. But that is a calculation predicated on the, making economic development in the city realistic. And I appreciate that the administration engaged in that calculation and decided that this was a wise investment. That said, I would encourage us, this will be the second development in the city that we have directly subsidized through ARPA funds, which once again, I think is part of the intent of the money that we set aside for economic development. And I don't have an issue with that. However, I would like to see us develop maybe a little bit more of a strategy for how we're planning to invest funds for economic development, and potentially look at creating some sort of a grant system, something like that, just because it seems as though I don't get the sense currently that there's a lot of intent with how we're investing these funds. It's simply sort of who's asking and who we deem worthwhile. And I would like to, we have received over the last 5 years since we heard about this funding, a number of requests for funding, not all of which are direct subsidies for potential new economic development, but all of which have the potential to impact Williamsport's economic development. And I think we need to be thinking about it a bit more holistically if this is a strategy we're going to take for use of the funds. Once again, I think it's a wise strategy for use of the funds. I'm not against it. I just would like to see us approaching it a little bit more holistically. And I think that's that's everything. From my end. Any further comments from Eric or Randy or anybody else out there?
I have none.
I don't either.
Okay, then since we're not voting on it, I think this moves on to the full body of council. Derek, if you could find out the answer to the LERTA question by Thursday, I would appreciate it. And also, I'm not really sure, frankly, where we stand with LERTA, just in terms of if we're looking to update it, some of those questions, and whether or not those, if the administration is interested in changing our LERTA offerings, if that would impact this development as well. Okay, thanks a lot.
I just have one further clarification, if I could,
please.
please.
Sure.
We mentioned that this is a T. Ross Brothers project, which essentially on the face of it, it is, but in the real scheme of things, the actual owner of the property, the developer, is the Woodland Heights Development LLC, which consists of several of the T. Ross Brothers principals, as well as one outside contractor that's not associated with our organization. He's a separate independent contractor from the Williamsport area. So I wanted to, in the sake of full disclosure and transparency, I wanted to make that very clear.
And who is the final contractor, if we might ask?
Randy Allison.
There is that's not me.
I was gonna say, wait, what?
By the way. No, there is a contractor. In fact, I got called once on a roofing job that he was doing, and they asked me when I was going to show up, and I said, well, I don't get up on roofs anymore, so.
Secret life of Randy Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. So
No, there's no
Randy's
secrets there.
Williamsport doppelganger out there with my name. And back when I used to bother Googling myself, it was only her who ever showed up. And every once in a while I'll get contacted like on Facebook or something for somebody who's trying to get in touch with her, but it doesn't happen much anymore. But anyway, okay.
But I
Liz,
hear you.
Liz,
will
can I ask
say-
a question?
Sure, Bonnie.
Michael, by any chance, do you have any bites on the houses yet?
Not to my knowledge. I know that Chris Helmrich, our CFO, is also a principal in Woodlands. He has been in some fairly regular conversation with the fish organization. And there seems to be some pretty high expectations that we'll have probably some buyers on agreements before a house is even finished. So we have not marketed this yet until we're ready to launch this, which will be in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And just to add the LERTA, yes, we are looking to, and we'll be coming to council in the not too distant future to talk about, re-upping the LERTA and getting a new one in place.
Okay. I mean, I think that would be a good thing to do. I think we need to consider how it impacts projects that are underway in the city.
Yep.
So, but that's, one of the big questions, but, okay. All right, then I think given that you and Mr.
If I could
Spear are on
add-
a crunch. Yep.
If I could add one more thing on the last subject, not to beat a dead horse, but I have heard about this other Randy Allison from people that do know him, that it's very reputable and of good character and does good work. So I'll pass that along as well.
Excellent. Randy, I'm not sure how. Sorry, that sounds funny. You speaking highly of a man with the same name as you.
Well, I wanted, as soon as I found out, I wanted to find out right away.
Yeah.
Kind of selfishly, but if I'm going to be mistaken with this guy, what's he like?
Yeah.
So I did verify that, so we can, he's a good addition to the team, I'd say.
Good, excellent. Well, that's encouraging. All right, and now I think Mr. Sander and Mr. Slaughter have an appointment elsewhere here shortly. So let's quickly move on to item number 5, a resolution executing an agreement between Lycoming County and the City of Williamsport for Act 13 funding.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. what you have before you, this is the real John Sander, by the way. What you have before you, what you have before you is an agreement between the city of Williamsport and Lycoming County for old city funding, where the county was gracious enough to pay the local share for us. It dates back way before my time, 2018, probably previous to that. The previous agreement expired in December of 2021. The county wanted an updated agreement, so that's what you have before you. This agreement that you have before you was written by Lycoming County, and it was reviewed by the city solicitor. Funding that the county would be paying on our behalf would be the match funding for the DeSalvo's block and the Riverwalk connector. Let me know if there's any questions.
Okay. I think the only question I have, Mr. Sander, is we do have that funding to hand back to the county in order to receive the greater amount of funding, correct?
That is correct. There was previously a dollar figure, $235,662 in Act 89 fees to pay back to the county in order to receive $511,822 in Act 13 funding for the matches.
Got it. And so that previous match amount, I'm assuming, applied to one of the two projects, and the larger match amount now applies to both?
Go ahead.
No, that's,
I'm sorry, I
It's
thought
weird.
someone was chiming in.
Yeah.
I don't have a direct answer toward the old funding.
more generous with us than they had been previously, then we are happy to accept the additional funding and use it for local match. We all know this project has been a long time in development, but also an exceptionally successful project sort of start to finish. We've been successful in getting a large amount of grant funding for the neighborhood, and we've been able to leverage a relatively small amount of local investment from the city, the foundation, and the county, among others. And Lycoming College, of course, has put a substantial amount of money into the project. Anyway, it's really been a success story, and it's great that the county is willing to support it even further than they were a couple of years ago. Mr. Sander, if there's nothing else to add and no other questions from anyone else on the meeting. All right, then I think we can conclude the discussion of this item. I'm going to move really quickly actually down to item number 7, any related items, because there was an item that did not make it on the agenda from our previous agenda, which was an update from the mayor and the current the current head of our finance department, Tracy Rash, on the situation in the finance department. And that didn't make it onto this agenda, but is something that we should address. Mayor Tracy, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. And Tracy is here, of course, and she'll add in, but we talked briefly a few weeks ago when we said that Tracy would be here today, which she is, to give us a more detailed update. But just very briefly, I can add in working through the reconciliations, working through the budget with department heads, working through the capital budget items, and then continuing on the off Tuesdays, which we discussed, I believe, a few weeks ago. We have started that, working with City Council, with the Finance Committee on the off week Tuesdays of council to continue to work on the budget for next year and start to see what that looks like in the various departments as we're working through all the other items. But I'll just be brief here, and then I'll go ahead. Tracy can give you more detailed, and then we can answer questions that might arise from there. So Tracy, I'll yield to you.
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So over the last couple of weeks, an update on what I've been working on. Of the bank accounts, there's 34 bank accounts of the city that needed reconciled. I have 29 of them reconciled. Sorry, 34 non-RVT accounts at the city. Of those, I have 29 reconciled through August 31st. Now it's a matter of going back and making all the corrections that I found for all those reconciling items. So that process began today. And in conjunction with that, what I found was that the credit cards had not been recorded in over a year. So I'm in the process of gathering all of those invoices and making sure all of those invoices are recorded in the system as well. Let's see. I found in the last 2 weeks that your continuing disclosure requirements, so those are requirements, those are things that you need to do, the city needs to do when they issue public debt, that those hadn't been done in a number of years. This morning, I was able to upload your budgets for the last 3 years, as well as load what's called a non-filing report that says that your audits aren't available and that you're working towards getting those audits completed and uploaded. I completed the DOJ grant reports with the fire chief last week. I've also attended a number of meetings for accounting systems and payroll systems. And we are working on a plan to get those things presented to council. So we've seen 3 accounting systems now, and we've seen 2 payroll systems. At present, we're trying to figure out how long it will take to get those systems for those vendors to be able to implement those systems for us. In terms of one of the accounting systems told us 18 months. So we're trying to get our ducks in a row in order to come to council with a recommendation. One of those things is that we may be recommending outsourcing payroll. And if that is the case, we'd like to stagger implementation and implement payroll as soon as possible, and then go with the accounting system. So it's not so much all at once. We also have met with the treasurer regarding some assistance for this office and discussed how the budget would work for that. And I've prepared school resource officer calcs for the police department and reviewed agreements with them. So that's really quick what's happened over the last 2 weeks.
Got it, Tracy. And just talk to us, I think a little bit of what we sort of requested this discussion for was looking forward to the end of the year, making sure that we feel like we'll be in a place by budget time that will enable us to go through the budget process efficiently. But also, we like you, Tracy, and you clearly are doing a wonderful job. But looking at our timeline for finding a permanent person in the finance department and making your services to the city more of an on-call style service. Have we looked sort of at our budgeting between now and the end of the year, how we're affording your services, and to what extent we think that we will still be utilizing your services, maybe not full time, but on a regular basis when the year begins?
So I can at least address part of that. And that is, we had originally thought that bringing somebody in with this archaic accounting system and then training them on this and then switching over to a new system didn't seem like an efficient process. But now that we're seeing that accounting systems are 18 months out, we're regrouping on that and reconsidering our options. So we haven't laid that out because we haven't gotten through all the accounting software meetings yet. So once we have an answer as to what direction we're going, then we'll make a recommendation that's the most efficient thing that can be done for the city. In terms of budget, again, I'm trying to get everything recorded so we know where we are on budget. I just haven't gotten that far yet.
Right. And to a certain extent, I think as we've been doing in these biweekly meetings that we started last week, we can move forward with sort of a zero balance rule. You know what I mean? But moving forward in November with that will be a bit more difficult than moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
Right, individually by department currently. Randy, Eric, what questions do you have? Don't all start shouting at once now.
I don't have any at this time. I appreciate the update.
Okay. Same feeling, Randy? Oh, did we lose Randy maybe? It's not like him not to, well, he's muted. All right, Randy, hearing nothing from you, we'll assume that you don't have any questions unless you chime in here in a sec.
No, I do not. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Sure. All right, well, thank you for the update, Tracy. I think I wanted to, while we heard some of this last week when we were discussing with public safety upcoming budgets for 2023. I just wanted to make sure that the information was available not just to those of us on city council, but to those of us in general in the city, so that everyone sort of where we're at with bringing the finance department back in, back into line with our expectations. So thank you very much for the update, Tracy. And
Certainly.
I think we can move back on out of any related items to item number 2 on the agenda, a transfer ordinance in first reading. Mr. Mackey, the treasurer's office.
Yes, so this is a two-part thing. As of last week, I will be over budget slightly for automation because we are sending out another $1,800 in notices and mailings trying to get more collections for the MVP taxes. As of last month, we had just met last year's revenue, so we still have another 4 months of revenue to generate before the end of the year for MVP taxes, and so it will be above what we collected last year. This is that $2,000 transfer is to help increase that even furthermore. And you will see the other $10,000 is to help hire the new position or new version of the position I have here in the treasurer's office, as well as help out the finance office. This would allocate about $32,000 of the $20,000 I have left right now into that. So we can hire somebody through the end of the year until we can get a budget made to hire that through the next year.
Got it. And so talk to me a bit, Tracy had just referenced this as well. Is this, or are we looking at budgeting this position exclusively out of the treasurer's office? Will it be partly budgeted through finance and partly through the treasurer's office?
I will be financing it through the end of the year out of my office because we haven't had someone fill this part-time position for an extended period of time throughout the year. So I still have a great deal of the funds left. I believe Molly had given me a full quote, and this would be paying for at least half a year's worth of employment.
Okay.
So with 2 months, 2 or 3 months left in the year, I think we can cover it through that period.
Got it. Okay. And obviously these funds are not needed in your equipment line.
Correct. I've already budgeted out everything else I would need the rest of this year, and Nick had a lot of stuff budgeted that did not meet that $30,000 through the past couple of years. I had reviewed that, and I don't think he ever went over $20,000 in his equipment, or even over $15,000 in some cases.
Got it. Okay. And it sounds as though you've been in discussions with the finance department about this full-time person, and there is the opportunity to sort of share in duties and responsibilities between the two.
Yes, I had actually been in discussion with Nick about this and getting his opinion before trying to finalize some of this stuff. There is definitely a need someone for all year round, but the finance department, the treasury department alone cannot keep them busy all year round. So that's why we are okay with allowing this to work out with the finance department, where we can share some of the burdens together and take some of the right duties away from them, or not away from them, but allow that person to work those duties for them.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think it's clear that we need more than just one position in the finance department, especially a part-time position. But this will at least begin to fill a need there, and hopefully meet your needs then moving forward. Talk to me about what the hire, when you would expect to hire for this position. Do we have anyone that we're looking at currently? Are we about to start advertising when this passes Thursday? If this passes,
I believe we're still finalizing some of the stuff, so we haven't gotten the notification out that we're going to be hiring full-time for this. Molly, Tracy, and I were still working on some of the stuff about how we would go about wording this. I believe my side is set. I think we're just waiting on some of the duties that they would put onto the position, and then Molly was just concerned about some other things. But this at least gets the funds ready to go. So as soon as that's finalized, we can put the notice out saying we're hiring.
great, terrific. All right, sounds good. Randy, Eric, any other questions?
I think it's a great workaround for the rest of the year, and obviously we need a plan for long term, but this is a great immediate need. So I think it fills out very well. And thank you, Kevin, for
Mhm.
working this up.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this to us. Okay. All right, hearing nothing else, I guess we can move on. Kevin, I don't think we have any questions or any additional information needs between now and Thursday. I haven't heard anything from anyone, so thanks for bringing this to us, and we will see you for it on Thursday in front of council. All right. Okay, item number 3 on our agenda is a resolution modifying the 2021 CDBG CV action plan. Mr. Memmy?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Neely and members of the Finance Committee. We're bringing to council and to the committee today an adjustment to our 2021 action plan for the CV funds that were allocated to the city. We're looking to utilize the remaining funds for outdoor recreational activities. One of the projects will be top coating 2 of the basketball courts and 2 of the parks, and the other one is for a recreational venue, potentially somewhere in the city in one of the LMI districts. With the help of Cdbg, we have followed all the appropriate procedures. We held the public hearing, and I believe in your packet that date was provided to you. And I'm looking at myself. The hearing was on August the 22nd, and the 30-day publication, the ad was placed on August the 12th. And with that, we come to council for council to allow the appropriate parties to sign the certificate. Tyler Dombrowski is here from Cdbg. We're here to answer any of your questions.
Great. Randy, Eric, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay. All right.
Nor do I.
Okay. I had a couple skips. So you say that we're setting aside monies to resurface basketball courts, but we haven't actually we haven't put that out for RFP or anything, correct?
Not at this time. No, we're just putting the funding in place.
Got it. And talk to me about the splash pad installation. This is not going toward the splash pad that we're currently installing at Shaw Place.
No, it is not. It is for a totally different project, and it may not be the splash pad. It might be another recreational opportunity. We're not set in stone on the splash pad itself. We used it in this as part of this substantial amendment as kind of like a placeholder, so to speak. But the splash pad was an idea. There's a couple of other ones that could possibly be where we address a need in one of the LMI parks.
Got it. And are all of our parks at this point LMI?
I think all but one, but don't hold me to that, Liz. I'm sorry, I don't have it top of my head. I'm not sure.
Got it. I would think they mostly should be. I can't think off the top of my head of one that I wouldn't think was LMI, possibly Brandon. But I'm not.
I think if it was any one of them, it probably is the Brandon Park.
Okay.
Location.
Okay. All right. So that's just a placeholder for a recreational use, but that we are still sort of fleshing out.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
I'm okay with being a sir. You know, it's all right. Everything's kind of fluid. And but anyway, okay. I think that's all. And so this basically just gets submitted, and we've held those funds. And is there a point at which we're expected to spend them? By which
we still have about 2 years.
Okay.
To have them allocated and spent.
So approximately the same timeline as we're on for all the ARPA funding.
Yes,
correct?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. Just as a real quick question, if we had funding available here, why didn't we utilize that for the Shop Place splash pad if it needed to be spent on about the same timeline? And Shop Place is probably LMI.
I don't have an answer to that one, Liz. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess could we figure out by Thursday if that is still a possibility for some reason?
We can check into it, yes.
Okay. The reason I ask is that this funding obviously is bound by restrictions that the ARPA funding is not. And so it would seem to me like we should be spending this funding first if we have a project that meets the funding requirements, and then leaving ourselves ARPA funding. I mean, if this funding had a longer timeline for expenditure than ARPA, that would be one thing. But if the timelines for both are the same, it would seem to me like we should be utilizing this for projects that we're already moving on that meet the restrictions of the funding, and leaving ourselves more funding that's a bit more open-ended. So yeah, if you could have a discussion about that before Thursday so that we could have an answer to that on Thursday night, that would be great.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything further from anyone else? Okay. Then we will move along. I'm still getting
No,
used to calling for, oh yeah, Randy, what?
Good point there, Liz. Good catch.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Yeah.
I believe, if I can weigh in here just 1 second on that, the amount of funding that we would have available in the CDBG program would not be sufficient to cover all the costs associated with the splash pad that is going into Shaw Park.
Right, but if we could spend
Potentially
400,
allocate some of it, that is a potential, yes.
right. I mean, we already were planning to take all of the other funding from ARPA, but if we could lessen that amount by $480,000, that would leave us funding that we could put into economic development, into recreation, and into other recreational items, and into a wide variety of uses that this funding is not well designed for. So certainly, if we could do that, I think that would be ideal. Okay, so we'll look forward to talking about that further then on Thursday. Okay. Oh, sorry. Next item on our agenda is you again, Mr. Memmy, item number 4, a resolution.
I don't like to hog up the show here today, but
No, that's okay.
I'll be very brief. We had
Mr. Memmy, it's my job to hog up the show.
Absolutely correct.
Apparently.
That is absolutely correct. I respect the position of chairman.
Okay, let me read the item into the record, and then you can get started. A resolution to amend the contract between the City of Williamsport and the Cdbg Council of Governments, or Cdbg Council of Governments. Sorry, that was redundant.
Okay, as we have done once in the past for the other substantial amendment that was created to put in place the funding for the fire apparatus, we had to do a substantial amendment to reallocate the funding from the CV funds. We utilized Cdbg, and this is a contract to be able to pay them. It all comes out of CDBG funds, no direct allocation from any city tax dollars.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Memmy. Eric, Randy, questions?
No, looks like we're just, we have additional costs and for their management, and we're meeting it.
Okay,
Same.
got it. Mr. Memmy, is Cdbg administering, I know they're administering most of our funds, are they also administering these exceptional pandemic related funds that we were just discussing in the last item?
Yes.
Okay, and that is not budgeted separately in any way?
No.
That's just part of their general, okay.
Yes.
All right, that's all that I have. This seems pretty cut and dried. I think perhaps as we wrap up, have we been working with Cdbg now for a full fiscal year on the federal level?
No, not yet. We're
Okay.
probably about 8 or 9 months in, but we're not a full year.
Got it. I think when we do get to that full year point, it might be helpful to me at least to understand the ways in which our arrangement with Cdbg has changed the budgetary landscape and community development. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and we are prepared to bring that to you as we start moving forward with the potential of their assistance in the 2023 action plan and CDBG program.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah, I figured you would be, but I just wanted to point out that I'm kind of interested to see what impact they've had on both sides, on the budget side and the compliance side, once we've got a year under our belt. But that's everything. Thank you very much, Mr. Memmi.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I will now move on to item number 6 on our agenda, a resolution for the minimum municipal obligation for the year 2023. Which Molly, I understand, Ms. Steel Shrimp, I understand you will be handling this item today?
Yep, that's correct. This was normally something that Mr. Pavlak would bring to you. I have taken over this responsibility, at least for this year. Working with Mock and Hop Benefits Group, Sue Trout is here with us today from Mock and Hop Benefits Group. They calculated the minimum municipal obligation for each of the 3 pension funds for us. And we need to have City Council approve this prior to September 30th. It will be included in next year's budget.
Got it. Okay. So you've provided some good historical information on the MMO, but Ms. Trout, what do you have to tell us? Hi, that's quite the background you have. I hope you're not actually on a beach with a palm tree behind you.
I wish I was. It just creates a cool, calming vibe. So I like them. I like the background. Thank you for including me. As Molly indicated, we calculate the MMOs. We're your actuarial consulting firm for your pension plans. And this time around for 2023's budget, which as Molly indicated is a requirement by Act 205 that these are included in your next year's budget. These specific calculations are based on the 1/1/21 valuations, which are the most recent valuations. And valuations are done every 2 years in accordance with state law. So you're using the latest information, which increase some of your costs. However, in the O&E plan, they were much lower because of employees, the change with the transit authority, and also you lost some amortization costs. So the O&E calculation is much lower than the previous years, and the police is slightly higher, and the fire is quite a bit higher. In totality, it was a $242,840 increase from the previous year. But I do have some good news for you. It does get offset by state aid. And the state aid calculation that you'll be receiving for this year, which Molly, I don't know if you've heard whether or not you've been notified when it's going to hit your bank account, but it's approximately an 8% increase from the previous year, which is large, quite frankly. So that's the good news associated with the 2022 MMOs. These deal with the 2023 and are a requirement of your budget for next year. Any questions?
Yes. Sorry. Well, first, Randy, Eric, questions from you?
No. It obviously, there's a range that these are falling into, and sometimes they go up and down, but the significant one is O&E permanently being down for a while. So we should possibly get from the state, just some quick math, 1.4 million, somewhere in that.
Yeah, my math is 1,357,000 approximately.
Okay.
And that it's an 8% increase over the previous year. And again, that offsets the MMO that's due by the end of this year, just so we're clear.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. It's good news.
So that offsets the 2022 MMO. The amount that we have in here is 1,305,000, but since then we've received notice of a further increase. Is that correct?
Yeah, the increased notice would have just come within the past week.
Got it.
To offset the 2022 MMO. And we don't know what the 2023 offset will be. They'll notify us next year of that.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds like we won't know until next year in October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on how they distribute it from a grand total pie across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The majority of the money comes from insurance companies that do business that aren't headquartered in Pennsylvania, that do business inside Pennsylvania. They pay fees into a pot of money that's distributed by the Auditor General based on population and all sorts of other factors.
Interesting. Okay. It's always, you don't really think about where the money's, I mean, you do often think about where the money's coming from within your own like budgets, but sometimes I think as a municipality, we don't tend to look too hard at like, oh, Act 89, I wonder what that does. Anyway, that's an interesting source for funding. I don't know that I've heard that one before. Okay, and moving forward next year, will we be based on the 2023 valuation or not? With the MMO net or the MMO for 2024 is based on 2023 or not? I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah, so if we prepare the 1/1/23 valuations in time to complete the 2024 MMO, they would be based on the 1/1/23. It would just depend how quickly we could get all the information done and wrapped up in order to do the valuations. I would suspect it would still be based on the 1/1/21s.
Got it. I was going to say, and I would assume that probably would be to our benefit, since I'm guessing the financial picture in 1/1/23 is not going to be as positive.
Yeah, it may not be, only because of the market this year, the 2021. So when we do the valuations, obviously it covers 2 years. 21's investment returns, I'm sure, were great, and 2022 is not so much. So you'll have 1 year offsetting the other.
Got it. Okay. Understood. So moving into 20, I mean, obviously moving into 1/1/23 is still right. A bit of a crapshoot, but the writing on the wall is not great.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah. Is this the first year that we're operating on 1/1/21 then?
It is.
Okay, got it. So actually our rates increased substantially then over the 2019 valuation, huh?
They did.
Okay, it was just the officers and employees that saved us from a substantial increase. All right. Well, this is what it is. That's kind of the interesting thing about we put this on meeting agendas every year as though we have some sort of a say in it. And in reality, it would be interesting if we all voted no, but the net effect, of course.
Yeah, it's an exercise required by the law.
Exactly.
And of course, it's on there because you have the fiduciary responsibility to pay. So
right. And consequently, I think we, generally speaking, take this opportunity to point out that this is an obligation and not something that is optional on the part of the city, and that it correlates to decisions made long ago, not to fully fund pensions as we were busy handing them out, and consequently meeting the obligations of our pension fund moving forward is basically a $4 million obligation, largely to the past, but not exclusively. But anyway, if there are no other comments or questions out there.
I don't have any.
Okay, then.
Nor do I.
Sorry, just jumping off to check some messages and make sure that there wasn't anything I was missing. Okay, then I think we are fine to thank you very much, Ms. Trout, for the information. Thank you, Molly, for taking this on in the absence of a sort of firm plan within finance as yet. And I think we're good to move on to item number 7, which is any related items. Does anyone have anything further to introduce for the good of the order?
I just had a question there, Liz. You had mentioned earlier about a process to apply for ARPA funds. Do we have something in mind already, or is that something that one of us wants to take on?
Well, Kevin, I think that would be something that a group of us would have to take on probably. I guess, other municipalities have engaged in that, and I think we could get substantial advice from the firm that we hired to sort of oversee our ARPA expenditures and make certain that we were following proper procedures. I think we could get a lot of guidance from them. I think to a certain extent, a lot of the process would be up to us. And the one caveat that comes with that recommendation that I made is that we have a limited amount of time to allocate the remaining funding the remaining ARPA funding. And so whatever process we come up with would have to be a relatively short and sweet process just to make certain that we could meet that that minimum. But I do feel like that would make it, would make me feel a little bit more like we had sort of opened up an opportunity to the community at large to make use of these funds that we've received, and might open up some really exciting economic development propositions, in particular, or recreation propositions that we had not considered. Sometimes I think as people who live day to day, the sort of task of running a city, sometimes you can kind of bury yourself a bit and you can miss some really interesting ideas, things that you just don't think of because you've become a bit jaded. Not you, Kevin, you've only been here for a little bit. But the rest of us. And so I think inviting community input could actually really wind up, certainly bringing in some really wild card ideas, but one of them might really be workable in a way that we wouldn't have considered. So I'd be happy to talk to you about it further. Maybe you and Derek can sit down or something. But I think it would make the process feel more open to the public, and I think it might result in some interesting propositions. But we need to get a move on. Okay.
The reason that I was thinking about this is, again, I have people coming in every day telling about their complaints and problems they have with the city. And one of the most recent ones is just about the increase in water that they have with the storm grant. So $10 a month, $120 a year, about 20% increase on some of these people's water costs just for the year. So I'm not sure if the water authority has reached out to us all for help for some of those funds. I do know the ARPA funds do say stuff about the stormwater, or not stormwater in general, but just water stuff in general that we could work about.
Well, I think I don't know, I can't remember. Randy, did we receive or did we submit a grant? I think we just submitted a grant. John Sander just submitted an application that would theoretically take care of the totality of the city's stormwater management obligations under an agreement that we executed with Loyalsock, actually, because we're partners in a stormwater plan.
Yeah.
And that clearly, if we get that funding, that will substantially help to offset any increases in stormwater obligation moving forward.
Correct.
Yeah, because that will help pay for just a huge chunk of money that the stormwater authority would otherwise have had to lay out to meet our obligations in the Chesapeake Bay. Which are good, but unfortunately, which we don't have any money for.
I was reading about that. It's just in terms of not only generating the city funds, but also saving the population in the area some money as well. Anything we could do to help out with that is part of our process and bringing up that meeting, or not meeting, but just committee to work on that.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good idea. So, all right, we'll take that as kind of the first potential idea then. And I tell you what, Kevin, if you want to text out, we could set up a meeting here sometime later on this week or next week if you wanted, and just sort of talk about it and spitball and see if the administration's put any thought into it so far. Okay. Are there any other related items that anyone would like to introduce? Okay. Yep.
This is Tyler Dombrowski with Cdbg. If I could just make a comment, Madam Chairwoman. So it was during the discussion earlier about some of the substantial amendment items. I just wanted to clarify, Cdbg's not administering any of the city's CDBG funds right now. The scope of our work has really just been drafting your plans for your 2022 CDBG program, and providing some support related to the 2023 2022 program. The amendment that we had here on the agenda today, as well as the amendment that was put up for the city's consideration last month, I believe it was just to provide some individual assistance for past funding years. But we're not administering any projects. We're not handling IDIS drawdowns or anything like that right now.
I apologize, Mr. Dombrowski, if I'm assuming that was me misspeaking on that. So I apologize if I misspoke. I guess my interest is in, when I say appreciating, just sort of looking at the, the amount of funding that we're currently investing in our relationship with Cdbg, and how it's impacting our compliance and et cetera, sort of the positives. I'm hearing exclusively good things, but with a year under our belts working with Cdbg, I think we'll be able to get a better idea. But if I misstated and said that you were administering city funds, I apologize. And your point is noted.
Yes, no offense taken or anything like that. I just wanted to be clear. And just for your information, we did submit a proposal to the mayor and Skip for 2023. I'm not sure if anything with that's been shared yet. Certainly understand city council's need to evaluate where you are, where you're going finance-wise, compliance-wise, et cetera. So I think, further discussions, whether or not that involves us, certainly seems like a logical thing to be doing relatively soon here.
Okay, I would agree. Well, sounds good. Then we'll look forward to seeing that when Skip and the mayor bring it forward to us. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. This has been a hell of a day for any related items. Anybody else have anything? Okay. If I hear nothing, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I will see you
Yes.
same time, same place 2 weeks from now. Oh, I will not see you same time, same place 2 weeks from now. Randy and Eric, please take note. Randy, I guess maybe you would want to run the meeting. I will be out of town in 2 weeks'
Okay.
time.
Well, I'm going to put Eric in charge, so
Oh, okay, good. All right, Eric,
good to go.
the force
Take
be with
care,
you.
everybody.
Why, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.